Now, we were talking earlier about the allegations about Boris Johnson and the refurbishment of his flat, so we can talk a bit more about this and some of the wider issues that it raises with the former chair of the Public Accounts Committee, Dame Margaret Hodge. Thank you very much for being with us. Taxpayers' money hasn't been spent on the flats. Boris Johnson settled the bill. Why should we care?
Because when we become members of Parliament, we all sign up to a set of standards. We promise to be open, we promise to be honest, and we promise to be accountable. And in telling us about the Downing Street flat, Boris Johnson has failed all those tests. He's been neither open, honest, or accountable. And all the inquiries that are currently taking place on this issue, they don't go to the heart of the matter. So the Electoral Commission is looking at the Conservative Party. His own advisor, we know, is toothless. He can't initiate inquiries, and we know that Boris Johnson can ignore the findings, as he did with Priti Patel. So I think it's really important to have an inquiry into Boris Johnson's own actions. And this is because it's part of a pattern, Sophie. It doesn't stand on its own. It stands with the dodgy contracts. It stands with the appointments that have been made. It stands with the Greensill scandal. It stands with the whole Dyson effort. And all this has become a part of a pattern. And we just have got to have confidence in those who are leading us, particularly in these troubled times.
What exactly do you think the Prime Minister could be guilty of here? And is it a resigning matter?
Sorry, I missed that, Sophie. What can he be guilty of?
Yeah, what do you think he could be guilty of here? And is it a resigning matter?
Well, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, to be honest, I think, there's so much going on at the moment. It's outrageous that we're having to spend time on this. We ought to be getting on with the issues that are confronting Britain, like dealing with getting people back into work, or like dealing with the social care system, which is so broken. Instead, we're having to focus on this. I don't know what Boris Johnson is guilty of. I do know that he has got form on this. When I did an inquiry into his actions when he was Mayor of London at the Garden Bridge, and what came out of that was a lack of honesty. Again, attendance, he gave contracts to friends and he didn't go through the due process there, and he wasted ratepayers' money, and that instance, 46 million pounds. So he's got
That's the point, isn't it? Because you're talking about taxpayers' money there, which is quite different to what is happening here. And actually, if you're looking at taxpayers' money, then, Boris Johnson isn't the only person to do up the number 11 flat. Tony Blair, who you served under, spent $285,000 in his decade as Prime Minister. But was that all fine because he's a Labour politician?
Well, hang on a minute, because I think this goes to the heart of the matter. If you're dealing with these very complex issues, you have to have confidence in the people who are leading you. And if those people who are leading you are not open, are not honest, are not prepared to be accountable, that brings into question whether or not they are competent and appropriate for leading this country through these difficult times. And it's not a question of, of Boris Johnson. If there's no such thing as a free lunch, Sophie. If somebody put thousands of pounds into your bank account to pay for decorations, if somebody jets you over to a Caribbean holiday for free, they will want something back. There's a favour they want back of it. And it's that issue. It's not, that it's his personal money or that it was party money. It's what are the favours that are wanted back. And if Boris Johnson doesn't come clean, you're left suspicious that actually it's impinging on his work as Prime Minister, on the PPE contracts, on who he appoints to particular issues, on how the Greensill scandal was dealt with, on how Dyson and his tax issues were there. And is that the sort of Britain we want? Do we want a Britain? Britain, I think we're in danger of losing what I call our moral integrity, where, all those standards in public life, which are so important in maintaining a strong, open, sophisticated and developed democracy, they're all threatened here. And we can't have confidence and trust in our Prime Minister. That's what I want to prove. If there's nothing in it, come clean, and then we can move on. But at the moment, he's refusing to do that.
There's an allegation in the Sunday Times today that the Prime Minister asked a donor to pay for his childcare costs. Now, Number 10 has said that the Prime Minister paid the cost. They haven't said whether or not he paid the original bill or if he reimbursed somebody else. Now, when I spoke to Dominic Raab, he dismissed this as gossip, as tittle-tattle. What's your view?
Well, again, the worry with this, and that's the other reason that this issue is important, is does this stand alone, or is it the tip of an iceberg? And are there other ways in which the funding of his rather lavish lifestyle has been dependent on individuals giving him cash? And what do they want in return of cash? There are two peers involved in this, both Lord Brownlow and Zach Goldsmith, both of whom were put into the House of Lords. Zach Goldsmith has got a position now in government. We've got to come clean. I do think that's one of the worries, is the Downing Street an isolated instance, or are there other instances, like the allegations around paying for the nanny, that could be there too? And if that's the case, if you're taking money in this secretive, private way, how is it influencing how you're approaching the issues of state? You can't go on like that. We can't have it. And it's not just me saying this. I think this is above party politics, Sophie. I think this really goes to the heart of what we're about. And there are a lot of Conservative commentators, from Max Hastings through, who are as concerned as I am about the nature of the way in which we are being governed today. This is I think, a really dangerous point in which our democracy could get very undermined. It's not just this, it's all sorts of things that are happening, pushing aside Parliament, sacking civil servants, all these, not listening to the media in the same way, not really caring about the rule of law. There are endless examples where this administration, led by Boris Johnson, will not maintain those standards that are absolutely key for us being a healthy democracy. We've got to tackle key issues. We shouldn't be focusing on this, and we can't until we have confidence in our Prime Minister.
Worth pointing out, of course, that we have approached Lord Brownlow for an interview. If Zach Goldsmith has got any comment, then we'd be very keen to bring you that as well. While I've got you, I'm quite keen to talk to you a little bit about the state of the Labour Party, because you're very vehement about talking about the failures of the current government, but at the same time, Labour has struggled to find a lead in the polls for many, many months now. You've got the local elections coming up where you're looking like you could even be losing seats like Hartlepool, that's always been Labour. Why is it that you're just failing to cut through?
I don't accept that we're not cutting through. What you have to understand is the general election in 2019 was the worst election result that Labour had experienced since, I can't remember, 1930, I can't remember the date, but it's decades and decades ago. So we've come out of the worst position, and rebuilding trust with our voters is something that will take time. And I think that's the first thing to say. If you look back at the Tories in 1997, it took them time to rebuild. It will take us time coming out of that appalling era with Jeremy Corbyn as our leader. It will take us time to come back. And I think the second thing is, this is a very sort of surreal time in politics. We are all concentrating on the pandemic, and I think that sort of creates, partisan politics is something we all want to come together as a nation, which is why Boris Johnson's position and his integrity is so absolutely crucial and almost above politics. But I think in that time, people are concentrated on different issues, and I think that's a second issue. And the third one is, we have to now rebuild a sense of hope in the future, and it's going to take us a bit of time to reposition ourselves. But I think Keir Starmer has done totally brilliantly. I didn't vote for him in the leadership election, but I've been very impressed by how he's moved us forward. He's dealt with all the nasty elements within the Labour Party. He's beginning to listen to people. He's starting to rebuild trust, and through a very difficult time when he hasn't been able to sort of be face-to-face with voters or do big conference speeches, I think he's not doing badly. I think he's doing rather well.
OK, Dame Margaret Hodge there. Thank you for being on the programme today.